Hello, my name is Justine Overacker, and welcome to my presentation, Capturing Global Earthquakes with the GPS Mega Network. Today, I'll be talking about the worldwide network of GPS stations and its ability to record coseismic displacement. Before I get started, I would like to briefly acknowledge my co-authors for their guidance and expertise and the institutions that support me. When we're talking about coseismic displacement, we're talking about earthquakes. And here is a map of all earthquakes magnitude 5.5 or greater recorded in the USGS National Earthquake Information Center catalog from January 1st, 1994 through November 30th, 2021. We start in 1994 because it's the beginning of GPS time as far as our GPS data holdings go. There are 13,864 earthquakes included, the largest being the magnitude 9.1 Great Tohoku earthquake. Here's a map of all the GPS stations that the Nevada Geodetic Laboratory processes data for. This amalgamation from several hundred regional networks of over 19,000 GPS stations worldwide is what we refer to as the GPS Mega Network. You can see that GPS stations are not distributed evenly across the globe, but in general, GPS stations are focused around plate boundaries and tectonically active areas. Each of these GPS stations record position data, called a time series, and when an earthquake event occurs, the GPS time series will record an offset, or step as I might call it, in the data. So what is an earthquake offset? An earthquake offset is a sharp, immediate discontinuity in the GPS time series caused by coseismic deformation near the GPS station. To the left is an example time series taken from the NGL of station CCCC near Ridgecrest, California. The teal lines are equipment changes, which I won't go into today, and the gray lines are possible earthquake events. In 2019, near the end of the time series, there is a sharp drop for the eastern component and jump in the north and up components where there's an earthquake offset from the magnitude 7.1 Ridgecrest earthquake. But why does this matter? Well, for those interested in the earthquake science, offsets can provide information on the type of deformation from the event as well as help seismologists resolve ambiguities in the source plane. Other researchers might be using time series for looking at long-term trends, however, and offsets can impact estimations of velocity, strain, and more if they're not accounted for. For either purpose, we need to be able to accurately estimate how large an offset is. To the right is an example of a time series with many offsets. This one from station J037 near Sendai, Japan. The large step on the left side of the time series is from the magnitude 9.1 Great Tohoku earthquake in 2011, but there are several additional, relatively smaller events that also cause steps in the time series that can give further details about the ongoing postseismic deformation, for example. So we need to be able to know the size of the offset when working with data affected by an earthquake, no matter the purpose. So why are we here? We are here to assess how the GPS Mega Network has evolved in its ability to detect and characterize earthquakes over time. Of those 13,864 earthquakes since 1994, we want to know what we were able to detect with our growing mega network of 19,518 GPS stations and how our detection has improved over time. This means answering questions about how the mega network automatically decides which stations are potentially affected by an earthquake event and how it estimates the size of the offset in an individual time series for a single earthquake event. I will focus specifically on recent improvements to offset estimation strategies to increase the precision of our offsets and make our automated system more robust. So first we'll talk about how the mega network automatically decides which stations are potentially affected by an earthquake event. For the purposes of automation, for each event magnitude 5.5 or greater, the radius of influence, defined by the equation shown and based on earthquake magnitude and the location of the hypocenter, flags stations within the radius which may have experienced offsets 1 millimeter or greater. or GPS stations within the radius may have offsets less than 1 millimeter if the station is distant enough from the earthquake hypocenter or in a direction along the azimuth of rupture. The radius is merely intended as an operational approximation for the earthquake's horizontal extent of influence and is the basis of the Nevada Geodetic Laboratory's step file. Earthquake offsets are estimated for all stations within the radius of influence. The figure to the right shows the GPS meganetwork in purple, and gold are GPS stations with data flagged for potential offsets from the magnitude 6.5 Monte Cristo range main shock in 2020. There are two methods for estimating earthquake offsets, and an example is given here. These are coseismic offsets from the magnitude 6.5 Monte Cristo range main shock using the time series modeling method, shown on the left, and day near event modeling method, shown on the right. Current NGL practice is to use the time series model, which first solves for the velocity term in the time series using the Midas algorithm solutions. Then it solves for remaining terms, seasonal, post-seismic if it's magnitude 6.8 or greater, and equipment change offsets as well as earthquake offsets. These are found through a combination of iterative and least squares inversion via an unpublished algorithm. The time series model is what's shown by the red line on NGL time series pages and the previous time series plots I showed in this presentation. The day near event method uses position data within 30 days before and 30 days after the earthquake to estimate offsets. You may notice the day near event offsets on the right have significantly less scatter than the vectors plotted using the time series model on the left. Using data close in time to the event results in less bias associated with unmodeled signals such as seasonal, post-seismic, undocumented equipment change related offsets, other earthquakes, hydrological deformation, etc. This method eliminates dependence on least squares estimation. For this study, if there is no data in that 60-day window, we use the time series model method to calculate offsets. But for the purposes of our presentation and talking about improvements to our estimation strategy, I'll be focusing on the day near event methodology, and we'll go into how offsets are estimated in more detail. For our day near event model, for each station flagged for an individual earthquake, we build arrays based on changing position window intervals that use 1 through 30 days before the earthquake and 1 through 30 days after the earthquake to estimate offsets. From that, we can calculate 900 values each of RMS misfit, median absolute deviation, and formal uncertainty. If there is data missing during an interval, those values are not calculated. And if there are events before, after, or on either side of the earthquake offset we're calculating, that position data is not included and the interval is cut short. This new robust strategy infers both a trend and a step size based on medians and Thielsen statistics, similar to the Midas algorithm. We normalize median absolute deviation and normalize formal uncertainty before summing them together to find the minimum position window time interval combination in days before and days after an earthquake with the lowest combined value. The three figures shown are contour plots of the previously mentioned 900 value arrays for data from station ALAM for the 2020 Monte Cristo range earthquake. On the left is normalized formal uncertainty of every day combination 1 through 30 days before and 1 through 30 days after the earthquake. The center is the normalized MAD equivalent. The right is the sum of both arrays, and the minimum optimal position window is located at 23 days before and 30 days after, as shown by the red star. Taking that optimal position window time combination, we can apply it to the estimated offset array for a given station for an earthquake. The left is the sum of normalized formal uncertainty and MAD arrays for station ALAM for the Monte Cristo range earthquake, and the minimum optimal position window is located at 23 days before and 30 days after. The right figure gives an offset estimate of 1.1 millimeters. This day-near event strategy is then applied to each station flagged for an earthquake that has data within 30 days before and 30 days after every earthquake in the USGS NEIC catalog since January 1st, 1994, as I mentioned before. If there is no data in that time span, the time series model is applied instead. We can apply this information to assess how the GPS meganetwork has evolved in its ability to detect and characterize global earthquakes since 1994. Here is the global map of the GPS meganetwork again, shown in purple, but this time I've also plotted which stations have been flagged for earthquake offsets in gold. 7,433 unique GPS stations, totaling 38% of the GPS meganetwork, account for over 61,000 possible earthquake offsets. Of the 13,864 earthquakes magnitude 5.5 or greater, 3,174 earthquakes were detected by at least one GPS station in the meganetwork, approximately 23% of the total catalog. 2,618 of those earthquakes were detected using the days near event model, and 556 were flagged for the time series model. And if you're curious how many of those GPS meganetwork detected earthquakes were land-based, only 856 of them were, which is approximately 33% of all land-based earthquakes. Let's take a closer look at some of the numbers. Red bars are the GPS meganetwork. Yellow shows the number of earthquakes originating on land, and the blue bars are total number of earthquakes from the USGS NEIC catalog. To the left is the breakdown of earthquakes seen by the GPS meganetwork compared to the USGS NEIC catalog by magnitude, and to the right is the catalog comparison by year. The deficit between catalogs for earthquake magnitude decreases as magnitude increases because so many of the smaller earthquakes originate offshore. The catalog comparison by year shows the growing GPS meganetwork, and in 2005, the number of earthquakes detected by the meganetwork finally exceeds the number of earthquakes on land. Continuing, the catalog comparison by magnitude per year is graphed on the right figure. Overall, the GPS meganetwork can generally not detect smaller magnitude earthquakes in mid-oceanic ridges, but it does detect all earthquakes magnitude 8 or greater. The number of detectable earthquakes surpassed the number of land-based earthquakes by 2005, meaning after the big GPS expansion, the meganetwork could detect greater number of offshore earthquakes. And there's a trend of increasing earthquake detection over time. All positive news. In summary, I introduced you to the Nevada Geodetic Laboratory's optimized offset estimation strategy for the GPS meganetwork, the day near event model, which improves accuracy of estimated earthquake offsets in the GPS time series. We then applied these strategies to the GPS meganetwork to assess how it's evolved in its ability to detect and characterize earthquakes over time. For all earthquakes magnitude 5.5 or greater since 1994, the GPS meganetwork records at least one GPS offset for 23% of the USGS NEIC catalog and 33% of all earthquakes in the catalog that are land-based. Finally, the GPS meganetwork earthquake catalog completeness increases with magnitude and with time as the network grows. Thank you, and I look forward to answering any questions.